Title: The Enigma of Ether Isle. Prologue. Ether Isle had long whispered its name through the salty breezes and ancient mariners' tales. Concealed by a thick veil of mist and mystery, the island was rumored to harbor wonders and terrors beyond mortal imagining. It beckoned explorers with promises of unimaginable treasure, mystical creatures, and secrets of a forgotten era. This is the tale of one such expedition, a journey that weaves together disparate narratives, each as distinct as the island's shifting landscapes. Chapter 1: The Scientific Expedition. Dr. Eleanor Blake, a renowned marine biologist and geologist, led a team of researchers aboard the research vessel Aurora. Their mission was to decode the geological anomalies that appeared in satellite images of Ether Isle. As the boat neared the island's rugged coastline, the team observed peculiar rock formations and vibrant coral reefs encircling hidden coves. Inside her waterproof notebook, Eleanor meticulously recorded observations, mineral compositions that defied conventional classification, fossilized remnants of long-extinct flora, and the uncanny luminescence of bioluminescent algae. The team established a temporary base near a freshwater spring, where they discovered a network of underground caverns. In these silent halls, the glint of ancient inscriptions hinted at an advanced civilization whose knowledge spanned both natural science and mysticism. Each discovery raised new questions. Was the island a natural laboratory of evolution, or did it serve as a sanctuary for a lost society? As they delved deeper, a feeling of awe and trepidation settled among the researchers, marking the beginning of a journey that would challenge the very foundations of science. Chapter 2: The Nautical Adventure. Captain James "Red" McAllister, a seasoned sailor with a weathered face and a heart as wild as the ocean, had his own reasons for venturing to Ether Isle. His life had been a tapestry of storms, shipwrecks, and high seas romance. Under his command, the sturdy brigantine Seraphim sliced through turbulent waters, driven by legends of a hidden cove where pirate treasures glowed beneath moonlit tides. Red's crew, a motley collection of ex-pirates and freebooters seeking redemption, shared whispered memories of a cursed chest and ghostly apparitions. One fateful night, as lightning danced across the sky, they spotted an ancient map wedged between the folds of a waterlogged journal. The map promised not only riches but also a way to lift a centuries-old curse that had plagued their ancestors. Navigating treacherous reefs and outsmarting rival treasure hunters, the crew of the Seraphim faced deadly traps, shifting sands, and eerie songs carried by the wind. Their journey was a blend of camaraderie, betrayals, and unexpected alliances. In the heart of the island's labyrinthine bay, they uncovered a hidden grotto adorned with carved sigils and strewn with artifacts that whispered the island's tumultuous past. Chapter 3: The Supernatural Encounter. In a small, secluded village near the island's eastern cliffs, lived Marisol Rivera, a gifted medium with the rare ability to commune with spirits. Drawn by recurring dreams of a spectral voice calling her name, Marisol embarked on a pilgrimage to Ether Isle, believing it to be the epicenter of otherworldly energy. From the moment she set foot on the misty shores, the veil between the living and the dead seemed impossibly thin. Ghostly apparitions flitted among ancient banyan trees, and the winds carried soft murmurs of forgotten souls. Marisol encountered a mysterious guardian, a luminous figure draped in robes of starlight who warned her of impending doom should the island's secrets fall into the wrong hands. Her nights were filled with surreal visions of spectral processions and cryptic symbols glowing in the darkness. Every encounter left her both enlightened and haunted. She soon realized that Ether Isle was not merely a physical space but a nexus where the realms of life and death converged, a sanctuary for souls seeking resolution. Marisol's journey was one of internal reckoning and transcendent connection, forcing her to reconcile her past and embrace a destiny that defied mortal constraints. Chapter 4: The Epic Fantasy Quest. Beyond the realms of science and reality, a parallel narrative unfolded, a tale of magic, destiny, and heroic quests. In this retelling, the island was known as Etheria, a land where enchanted forests and towering crystal spires pierced the sky. The protagonist, Sir Selim of the Silver Order, was tasked by the ancient council of elders to retrieve the legendary Orb of Luminance, believed to hold the power to restore balance to a world beset by darkness. Selim's journey began at the break of dawn, when the golden light revealed secret pathways beneath massive, sentient trees. Along the way, he joined forces with a diverse fellowship: Lysandra, a fierce elven archer with unparalleled marksmanship; Brahm, a gentle giant whose strength was rivaled only by his compassion; and Ira, a cunning sorceress whose knowledge of forgotten spells was unmatched. Together, they faced trials by fire, puzzles guarded by mischievous fairies, and riddles spoken by ancient stone statues. The quest was fraught with magical duels, alliances with enigmatic creatures, and battles against spectral armies rising from cursed tombs. As Sir Selim and his companions approached the sanctum of the orb, they encountered a final test, a labyrinth woven by time and magic. Their perseverance and unity ultimately unveiled the orb, whose radiant glow banished the encroaching darkness and heralded a new era of hope and unity across Etheria. Chapter 5: The Psychological Thriller. Not all tales from Ether Isle were filled with grandeur and mysticism, some were steeped in the shadows of the human psyche. In this narrative, the explorer, Alexander Reed, was a conflicted writer grappling with the specter of his own mind. Haunted by past failures and relentless inner demons, Alexander sought refuge on the island, believing its isolation would allow him to confront and conquer his deepest fears. The island, however, proved to be a mirror to his inner turmoil. As Alexander traversed dense, fog-laden forests, the boundary between his imagination and reality began to blur. The rustling of leaves transformed into ominous whispers, and the shifting silhouettes of trees resembled figures from his tormented past. Paranoia set in, and every shadow appeared to hide an unseen menace. In his quest for truth, Alexander uncovered an abandoned mansion, a relic of a bygone era whose walls were adorned with cryptic messages and eerie portraits. The mansion became a theater for his internal drama, each room an allegory of guilt, regret, and redemption. With each step, he pieced together fragments of his memory, confronting unresolved traumas that had haunted him for years. In the chilling climax, Alexander realized that the true mystery of Ether Isle was not a hidden treasure, but the journey towards self-forgiveness and the liberation of a tormented soul. Chapter 6: The Historical Epic. Deep within the annals of time, Ether Isle also existed as a silent witness to the rise and fall of empires. In this historical narrative, the island was once home to a thriving civilization known as the Etherians. Their legacy was etched in the form of intricate stone temples, elaborate murals, and a sophisticated system of governance that predated modern society by millennia. The story follows Lucia Marconi, a determined historian from Renaissance Italy, who embarked on a perilous voyage across treacherous seas in search of forgotten lore. Armed with only ancient scrolls and cryptic prophecies, Lucia's expedition was a race against rival scholars and opportunistic mercenaries intent on exploiting the island's riches. Exploring ruins overtaken by nature, Lucia deciphered symbols that recounted the rise of a utopian society, a culture steeped in art, philosophy, and a profound connection to nature. Yet, as she delved deeper, she unearthed accounts of internal strife, betrayal, and a mysterious catastrophe that led to the civilization's abrupt decline. The narrative of Etherians was a rich tapestry of triumph and tragedy, a testament to human ambition and its inherent vulnerabilities. Lucia's discoveries not only rewrote history but also provided timeless lessons on the impermanence of human constructs and the enduring spirit of resilience. Chapter 7: The Modern-Day Survival Drama. In the present day, Ether Isle transformed into an arena of raw survival and human ingenuity. When a catastrophic storm stranded a diverse group of tourists and locals on the island, they were forced to unite against the elements and the wilderness. Among them was Maya, a resourceful survivalist with a knack for improvisation, and Ethan, a pragmatic urbanite unaccustomed to the demands of nature. The stranded group, comprising individuals from all walks of life, had to forge a makeshift society amid the island's unpredictable dangers, raging wildfires, venomous creatures, and uncharted territories. Their journey was one of constant adaptation, building shelter from the debris of a lost civilization, scavenging for food in lush but perilous jungles, and establishing communication signals to alert potential rescuers. As days bled into weeks, alliances formed and conflicts emerged, exposing the raw facets of human nature. The survivors discovered hidden caches of supplies and even remnants of advanced technologies left behind by previous inhabitants. Ultimately, the ordeal became more than a mere struggle for survival. It was a crucible that tested their spirit, forced them to confront their personal demons, and ultimately forged an unbreakable bond among them. Epilogue: The Legacy of Ether Isle. Ether Isle remained an enigma, a place where science, magic, history, and the human soul intertwined. The island's mysteries defied a single narrative, inviting every explorer to embark on their own journey of discovery. Whether it was the rational inquiry of a scientist, the daring exploits of a pirate captain, the ethereal communion of a medium, the fantastical quests of chivalric heroes, the introspective battles of a troubled writer, the scholarly pursuits of a historian, or the raw survival instincts of modern-day castaways, each path led to revelations that transcended the boundaries of time and space. In the end, Ether Isle was not merely a destination, it was a living, breathing testament to the endless pursuit of knowledge, adventure, and self-discovery. Its legacy was etched in the hearts and minds of all who dared to dream, explore, and believe in the magic that lay hidden just beyond the horizon. Title: Iman's Journey Through the Cartoon Multiverse. Prologue: The Cartoon Fan's Dream. Iman had always loved cartoons. From the moment he could sit up, his world was filled with bright colors, fantastical characters, and thrilling adventures. He had grown up watching everything, from classic slapstick comedies to epic animated sagas. His room was covered in posters, his shelves filled with action figures, and his mind packed with endless knowledge of every cartoon universe he had ever seen. But never in his wildest dreams did he imagine he would one day enter them. It all started on an ordinary evening. Iman sat on his bed, remote in hand, flipping through channels in search of something exciting. Then, something strange happened. The screen glowed brighter than usual, almost as if it were alive. Before Iman could react, a sudden surge of light pulled him in. The world around him dissolved into streaks of color, his body weightless as he spiraled into the unknown. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself standing in the middle of Chapter 1, The Zany Slapstick City. Iman blinked. The world around him was bursting with exaggerated shapes and colors. Buildings twisted at impossible angles, and the streets were filled with characters straight out of a classic Saturday morning cartoon. Everything seemed animated, with vibrant hues and smooth, looping motion. Before he could take a step, a loud boing echoed through the air, and suddenly, wham! Something crashed right into him, sending him rolling down a street made entirely of rubber. He looked up to see a wacky, big-eyed rabbit with an oversized grin. "Hey, buddy. Watch where you're standing." "I was about to pull off my greatest trick yet, jumping over 100 pies without slipping," the rabbit said in a voice so high-pitched and animated, it made Iman's ears ring. Where am I?" Iman stammered. The rabbit yanked him to his feet. "Why, you're in Zany Slapstick City, of course. Home of ridiculous antics, giant mallets, and pies to the face." Before Iman could react, splat! A pie hit him right in the face. He groaned. Great. The next hour was pure chaos. Iman was chased by a mischievous duck, ran from an anvil that fell from the sky, and ended up in a chase scene with an angry bulldog that looped in exactly the same 3 background frames over and over again. "All right. That's enough," Iman shouted, realizing that in this world, the only way to survive was to play along. With a newfound confidence, he grabbed a giant spring-loaded boxing glove from a random barrel and boing! With a well-timed punch, the bulldog went flying into the sky, vanishing with a tiny twinkle. The city erupted into applause, and confetti rained down. Well. Looks like you're getting the hang of it," the rabbit said with a chuckle. "You'd fit right in here." Before Iman could reply, a swirling portal appeared beneath him. It seemed his adventure wasn't over yet. Chapter 2, The Cybernetic Battle Realm. Iman fell through the portal and landed with a hard thud. He sat up and gasped. He was no longer in a wacky, colorful city. Instead, he was in a neon-lit cyber world with towering skyscrapers, flashing billboards, and sleek robotic citizens moving in perfect synchronization. The entire place had the feel of a futuristic anime, complete with an electric guitar riff playing in the background. A loud alarm rang through the air. Intruder detected. Iman turned around and saw an army of sleek, humanoid robots marching toward him, their mechanical eyes glowing red. Suddenly, a heroic voice shouted, "Get down!" Iman dove to the side just in time to see a blur of silver and blue slam into the ground in front of him, a cyber warrior with spiky hair, futuristic armor, and a giant energy sword. "I'm Zero, leader of the resistance," the warrior said, helping Iman up. "You're in cybernetic battle realm. Looks like you weren't supposed to be here, huh?" "Yeah, you could say that," Iman muttered. Before he could ask more questions, the robot army attacked. Zero unsheathed his sword, and Iman had no choice but to dodge and weave through the chaos. Luckily, he noticed a discarded plasma blaster nearby. Without thinking, he picked it up and fired. Pew pew pew. Lasers streaked through the air, and the robots exploded into showers of sparks. Ayman couldn't believe it, he was actually fighting in a high-tech anime battle. After an intense showdown, Zero clapped him on the shoulder. "Not bad, rookie. But you should probably get out of here before the Overlord finds out you're..." Another portal appeared, pulling Ayman away before he could hear the rest. Chapter 3, The Whimsical Fantasy Kingdom. Ayman landed in a completely different world, one filled with enchanted castles, floating islands, and magical creatures roaming freely. The air smelled of fresh flowers and magic, and the sky was a dreamy swirl of pastel colors. A fairy-like princess with shimmering wings gasped as she saw him. "Oh, brave traveler. Have you come to defeat the wicked sorcerer who cursed our kingdom?" Ayman sighed. "Let me guess, I don't have a choice." The princess smiled sweetly. "Nope." What followed was a whirlwind of magical duels, enchanted forests, talking animals, and an epic showdown with a villain who cackled way too much. Ayman found himself wielding a golden sword that glowed with pure energy, battling alongside knights and wizards. At the climax of the battle, just as he struck the final blow against the sorcerer, another portal appeared. Epilogue, back to reality. Ayman fell onto his bed with a loud oof. The remote was still in his hand, the cartoon on the TV playing like nothing had happened. He sat up, breathing heavily. Was it all a dream? It had to be. Right. Then, he felt something heavy in his pocket. He reached inside and pulled out a futuristic plasma blaster. His eyes widened. Maybe, just maybe, his adventures weren't over yet. Title: Through Time, A Journey into My Parents' Past. Prologue: The Mysterious Pocket Watch. Ethan had always been curious about the lives his parents lived before he was born. His mother and father often shared nostalgic stories of their youth, painting pictures of a time that seemed so distant from his modern reality. But no words could truly capture the hardships, the love, and the sacrifices they had endured. One evening, while rummaging through an old wooden chest in the attic, Ethan found a peculiar pocket watch. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, its face adorned with strange, glowing engravings, and the hands ticking backward. When he pressed the small button on its side, the world around him swirled into a blur, and he felt himself being pulled through time. When the dizziness subsided, he opened his eyes and gasped. He was no longer in his house. The world had changed, the air was different, and he stood in a bustling street from decades ago. Chapter 1, A Father's Youth, A Life of Struggle. Ethan found himself in a small town in the late 1980s. He recognized the place from old photographs, his father's hometown. The streets were alive with people going about their daily routines. The smell of fresh bread wafted from a nearby bakery, and bicycles zipped past, their bells chiming. He turned a corner and spotted a teenage boy sitting alone on the steps of a rundown bookstore. He looked exhausted, his clothes patched in several places. A younger version of his father. Ethan watched as his father sighed, flipping through the pages of a worn-out book. Suddenly, a group of older boys walked past and snatched it from his hands. "Hey! Give that back," his father shouted, standing up. One of the boys smirked. "Or what? Gonna hit me with your knowledge?" They shoved him, sending him stumbling back. Ethan clenched his fists, wanting to do something, but he knew he was only a spectator in this journey. The younger version of his father did not fight back. Instead, he watched as the bullies laughed and left, dropping the book carelessly into a puddle. With a deep breath, he knelt down, picked it up, and wiped the wet pages. Ethan swallowed hard. His father had once told him he had to fight for everything in life. But seeing it with his own eyes, seeing the quiet resilience, was something else entirely. Chapter 2, A Mother's Silent Strength. Just as Ethan was absorbing his father's struggles, the watch in his hand glowed again, pulling him forward in time. He landed in a small, dimly lit apartment. The scent of soup filled the air, but it was faint, as if there wasn't much to cook with. At a rickety wooden table sat a young woman, his mother. She was bent over a sewing machine, her fingers working tirelessly as she stitched fabric together. A small pile of unfinished garments sat beside her. The door creaked open, and a younger version of his grandmother entered, her face lined with worry. "Did you eat today, dear?" His mother forced a smile. "I had something earlier, Ma. Don't worry about me." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. He knew she was lying. He saw the way she pressed a hand to her stomach as if trying to ignore its complaints. He wanted to cry out, to tell her to eat, to rest, to not work herself to exhaustion. But she didn't stop. The sewing machine whirred late into the night as she kept stitching, her determination unwavering. Also, she could support her family. Chapter 3, The Day They Met. Ethan blinked as the world shifted again. This time, he found himself standing near a crowded festival in the town square. Lanterns hung from trees, and laughter echoed through the air. And there, amidst the sea of people, he saw them. His father was young, looking slightly out of place in his worn clothes. His mother, standing a few feet away, was holding a basket of sweets she was selling. Their eyes met for the first time. His father hesitated before stepping forward. "How much for one of those?" His mother smiled, handing him a piece of candy. 5 cents. "But for you, 3. Ethan watched as his father fumbled in his pocket, producing only 2 cents. "I only have this much." His mother laughed softly. "Then I guess you owe me a favor." It was the start of something neither of them expected. They continued to meet at the festival every year after that, exchanging laughter, stolen glances, and shared dreams. It wasn't an easy romance. His father was constantly working, trying to build a future, while his mother was tied to responsibilities. But they made it work. Through hardships, through sacrifice, through unwavering faith in each other. Chapter 4, Love in the Face of Hardship. Years passed. Ethan saw them struggle, saw them fight, saw them make up. He saw the nights they sat in their tiny apartment, dreaming about a better future. He saw the day his father got his first stable job and how his mother cried tears of joy. He saw the arguments, the pain, the exhaustion, but he also saw the moments of quiet love. The way his father would bring home a small flower, even when they had no money. The way his mother would mend his father's shirts, even when her hands were sore. They built a life together from nothing. And they did it with love. Epilogue, A New Understanding. When the watch finally pulled Ethan back to the present, he was in his room again. The attic was still there, the chest still open. The pocket watch was now quiet, resting in his palm like an ordinary trinket. But Ethan knew better. It was more than that. It had shown him the depth of his parents' journey, the love that had built the life he now had. That evening, when he saw his parents sitting together on the couch, he didn't hesitate. He walked over, hugged them both tightly, and simply said, "Thank you." His father chuckled. "What's this all about?" Ethan just smiled. Some things, he realized, didn't need to be explained. They just needed to be felt. Title, The Secret Beneath the Surface. Prologue, A Friendship Built on Trust. Jason and Daniel had been best friends for as long as they could remember. They had grown up on the same quiet street, played on the same dusty playground, and shared their biggest dreams under the same starry sky. Jason had always believed he knew everything about Daniel, his favorite food, his worst fears, even the way his voice changed when he was nervous. But one evening, that belief shattered, and Jason realized that he had never truly known Daniel at all. It all started with a single, seemingly innocent mistake. Jason took the wrong bag home. Chapter 1, The Bag That Shouldn't Exist. Jason and Daniel often hung out after school at each other's houses. That evening had been no different. They had studied, joked around, and played video games until Jason's mother called, reminding him it was time to come home. In his rush to leave, Jason grabbed a bag from the chair in Daniel's room, thinking it was his own. It wasn't. He realized it as soon as he got home. The bag was heavier than usual. Jason frowned and unzipped it, expecting his textbooks and maybe a half-eaten granola bar. Instead, what he found made his heart pound violently against his ribs. Inside the bag were stacks of cash, neatly bundled and secured with rubber bands. A small, locked metal box sat next to the money, its edges slightly scratched. At the very bottom, there was a black leather notebook, thick with handwritten notes. Jason's fingers trembled as he flipped it open. The first page had only one line scrawled across it. "If you are reading this, stop now. You don't want to know the truth." Jason swallowed hard. His pulse drummed in his ears. Daniel was his best friend. What was he hiding? Chapter 2, The Weight of a Secret. Jason barely slept that night. The bag sat on his desk, a silent enigma. His mind raced through possibilities. Was Daniel in trouble? Was he mixed up in something illegal? The more he thought about it, the less sense it made. Daniel was a good kid. They had practically been brothers. There was no way he was involved in something dark, right? By morning, Jason had made a decision. He had to return the bag and pretend he had never seen its contents. But deep down, curiosity clawed at him. When Jason met Daniel at school, he forced himself to act normal. "Hey, man, I think I grabbed your bag by mistake yesterday." Daniel's face froze. His usual laid-back demeanor vanished, and for the first time in their years of friendship, Jason saw something unfamiliar in his best friend's eyes: fear. "Did you open it?" Daniel's voice was low, almost dangerous. Jason hesitated, then nodded. There was no point in lying. Daniel exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. "You shouldn't have done that." Jason's stomach twisted. "Daniel, what's going on? What is all that money? What's in the metal box?" For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then, with a look Jason had never seen before, one of resignation, he whispered, "If I tell you, you'll never look at me the same way again." Chapter 3, The Truth Hidden in the Notebook. Daniel didn't say anything else at school. Instead, he asked Jason to meet him at the old abandoned warehouse near the outskirts of town after sunset. Jason almost considered backing out, but his need for answers was too strong. When he arrived, Daniel was already there, leaning against a rusted metal beam. He was clutching the black notebook tightly in his hands. "This is my father's," Daniel said finally, flipping through the pages. "He was killed 6 months ago." Jason blinked. He had never heard anything about Daniel's father dying. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "No one knows. Because officially, he's still alive." Jason's head spun. "What? That doesn't make sense." Daniel shoved the notebook into Jason's hands. "Read." Jason hesitated before looking down at the scribbled pages. It didn't take long for the horror to settle in. The notebook detailed transactions. Large amounts of money moved from one unknown source to another. Cryptic notes about deals and favors were littered throughout, followed by names that made Jason's blood run cold. His father's name was on the list. Jason's breath caught. "My dad." Daniel's face was grim. They were all involved in something dangerous. "I found out about it after my father disappeared. I started tracking where the money was coming from, and I found out your dad, he was working with them." Jason's head shook violently. "No. My dad runs a business. He's not involved in anything shady." Daniel looked at him with sympathy, but his voice was firm. "That's what I thought about my father too." Chapter 4, The Choice. Jason's world had crumbled. If Daniel was right, then everything Jason knew about his family was a lie. "We have two choices," Daniel said. "We forget everything and pretend we never found this out. Or, we find out the truth." Jason felt his hands shake. This wasn't a simple secret. It wasn't some childhood mistake. This was something much bigger, something dangerous. But one look at Daniel told him there was no turning back now. "Let's find out the truth." Daniel nodded, gripping the notebook. "Then we need to be careful. Because if they find out we know, we won't just be in danger. We'll be next." The shadows stretched around them as they left the warehouse. Somewhere in the distance, a car engine hummed in the dark. Watching. Waiting. Jason had no idea what they were about to uncover, but one thing was clear. Their lives would never be the same again. Epilogue, a silent threat. That night, Jason lay awake, the notebook hidden under his bed. His mind was a whirlwind of fear and determination. Just as he was about to close his eyes, his phone buzzed. A single message appeared on the screen. "Stop digging." Jason's heart stopped. Someone knew. The game had already begun. Title: The Secret Garden of Butterflies. Prologue: The Awakening. Deep within a world unseen by human eyes, past the emerald veils of leaves and the shimmering threads of dewdrops, there exists a realm untouched by time, a place where butterflies rule, where the wind hums lullabies and flowers bloom in endless symphonies of color. This is the secret garden of butterflies, a world of magic and mystery, where the smallest wings carry the grandest dreams. I am Lyra, a butterfly unlike any other. My wings shimmer with hues of the morning sun, and my heart beats with the rhythm of the wind. For generations, my kind has guarded the wonders of this hidden sanctuary, but an ancient prophecy whispers that a great change is coming. And so, my journey begins. Chapter 1, The Dance of the Petals. The first light of dawn spills over the golden meadow, painting the petals of the sky with soft pastels. I awaken beneath the embrace of a lilac blossom, stretching my delicate wings to catch the warmth of the rising sun. Around me, the garden stirs to life. The dandelion elders whisper in the wind, their seeds floating like tiny messengers. The sapphire dragonflies skim the surface of a crystal-clear pond, their wings casting ripples of light. And then, the melody begins, the grand overture of the butterflies. We dance, not just for beauty, but for life itself. The flurry of wings stirs the pollen, weaving patterns unseen by human eyes, ensuring that the flowers will bloom again. It is an unspoken pact, a rhythm older than time. As I glide through the air, weaving between the branches of the ancient willows, I hear a familiar voice call my name. Lyra, come quickly. The moon moths have returned. Chapter 2, The Moon Moth's Warning. I race towards the towering branches of the elder tree, the heart of our kingdom. There, the moon moths await, a rare and mystical breed, their wings as pale as silver mist, their eyes holding the wisdom of the stars. Their leader, an aged moth named Solis, lands gracefully upon a fragile vine and speaks in a voice as soft as twilight. The shadows stir beyond the garden, he warns. A darkness we have long feared begins to creep from the world beyond. The forgotten veil has awakened. A hush falls upon the gathering. The forgotten veil, a name spoken only in hushed whispers. It is the one place no butterfly dares to go, a realm of perpetual twilight where no flower blooms, where the air is thick with silence. It is said that those who enter never return. What can we do? I ask, my wings trembling slightly. How can we stop the darkness from spreading? Solis regards me with ancient eyes. A single butterfly cannot turn the tides, but together, we are the breath of the wind, the pulse of the garden. You, Lyra, must seek the heart of the veil and uncover its secret before it is too late. I swallow my fear and nod. The journey ahead is uncertain, but I know one thing, the garden depends on me. Chapter 3, The Journey Beyond the Veil. I leave the sanctuary of the secret garden, my wings carrying me towards the unknown. The air grows colder as I venture into the forgotten veil, the vibrant hues of the world fading into a dim, endless dusk. The trees here are ancient and skeletal, their branches stretching like twisted fingers toward the sky. No flowers bloom, no melodies hum in the air, only silence. Then, I see them. Butterflies, hundreds of them, frozen in mid-flight, their wings locked in a perpetual state of stillness. They hover in place, as if trapped in time, their eyes staring blankly into the void. My heart clenches. Lyra, a whisper drifts through the darkness, and I turn to see a butterfly unlike any I have ever known. His wings are the color of midnight, speckled with tiny pinpricks of light like distant stars. You should not have come. Who are you? I ask, my voice barely audible. I am Eos, guardian of the veil. And you have stepped into a world where time stands still. Chapter 4, The Truth of the Veil. Eos leads me to the heart of the veil, where a single withered flower stands. This is where it began, he says. Long ago, the veil was part of the garden, but when the last starflower withered, the balance was lost. Without the starflower's light, the veil fell into eternal twilight. The garden has flourished, but the veil has suffered. Understanding dawns upon me. The secret garden and the forgotten veil are not separate, they are two halves of the same world. And if I can bring life back to the veil, the garden will be saved. There is still one seed left, Eos whispers, opening his wings to reveal a single shimmering seed resting upon them. But it must be carried by one who truly understands the harmony of the world. He places the seed upon my back. Fly, Lyra. Take it home. Restore the balance. Chapter 5, The Blooming of the Starflower. With all my strength, I fly back towards the secret garden, the seed glowing faintly beneath me. The moment I pass through the veil, a surge of light follows in my wake, like dawn chasing away the night. I land at the heart of the elder tree and gently place the seed in the soil. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, a soft glow pulses from the earth. The seed trembles, then cracks open. From it rises the first starflower in generations, its petals shimmering like the night sky. A golden light spreads through the garden and beyond, washing over the forgotten vale. The trapped butterflies stir, their wings regaining motion. Flowers bloom where none had grown before. The balance is restored. Eos appears beside me, his wings now glistening with new life. You have done what no one else could, Lyra. You have united the halves of our world. As the garden hums with life once more, I realize that I was never just an ordinary butterfly. I was meant to fly beyond the known and discover the truth. And as long as the wind carries me, I will continue to protect the magic of our world. Epilogue: The Eternal Flight. The secret garden of butterflies is no longer a place of divided realms. It is whole, forever thriving, forever blooming. And as I soar through the sky, I know that as long as there are wings to dance upon the breeze, the garden's magic will never fade. For we are butterflies. And we carry the whispers of eternity on our wings. Title: Lena and the Whispering Forest. Prologue: The Invitation of the Wind. The wind carried whispers that only Lena could hear. They curled around her ears like delicate threads of silk, wrapping her in their invisible embrace, calling her name in a language not quite human. She had always felt an unexplainable pull toward the woods beyond the valley, an attraction she couldn't name. On the night of her 20th birthday, a gust of wind rushed through her open window, flipping the pages of an old book she had been reading. The flickering candlelight cast restless shadows on the walls as the whisper grew urgent. A feeling settled deep in her chest, a certainty she couldn't ignore. She was meant to follow it. And so, barefoot and dressed in nothing but her nightgown, Lena stepped outside under the silver glow of the full moon and walked toward the unknown. Chapter 1: Into the Unknown. The air smelled of rain and earth, tinged with something floral that Lena couldn't quite place. The deeper she walked into the forest, the more the world behind her seemed to fade, swallowed by the dense foliage. It was as if she had crossed an unseen threshold, stepping into a realm where time no longer followed the same rules. The trees stood taller here, their trunks impossibly wide, their roots tangled like the fingers of ancient giants. Their leaves shimmered, catching the moonlight in odd ways, almost as if they glowed from within. Fireflies flickered in intricate patterns, forming trails that led deeper into the forest, urging her forward. Then she heard it, the song. It wasn't human, nor was it something she had ever heard before. It was like the murmuring of the river, the sigh of the wind, and the rustling of leaves all woven into a melody so hauntingly beautiful that it made her chest ache. Something, or someone, was calling her. Her heartbeat quickened as she stepped through the towering trees, the song growing clearer, guiding her toward the unknown. Chapter 2: The Guardians of the Woods. The first sign that Lena was no longer in an ordinary forest came when the trees moved. She had taken another step forward when the massive oak beside her shifted, not a creak of the wind or the sway of branches, but a deliberate movement, as if the tree itself was turning to watch her. Its bark groaned, splitting slightly to reveal an eye, a deep, swirling emerald eye that blinked slowly before disappearing back into the trunk. Lena froze, her breath caught in her throat. Before she could react, the underbrush rustled, and a figure emerged. It was tall and lean, its form draped in vines and moss, its face half hidden beneath a hood of woven leaves. Its eyes glowed like fireflies in the night, ancient yet familiar. "Welcome, traveler," it said, its voice layered, as though multiple voices spoke at once. "The forest has been waiting for you." Lena felt no fear, only awe. She had stepped into a dream, a world she had longed for without knowing it. "Who are you?" she whispered. The being tilted its head. "We are the keepers of the old ways, the guardians of the whispering forest. And you, Lena, have come at last." Chapter 3: The Path of Echoes. The guardians led her through the winding pathways of the forest, past rivers that shimmered with liquid gold, past flowers that sang in the night, their petals vibrating with the rhythm of the wind. She walked barefoot across carpets of moss that felt softer than any fabric she had ever touched, her heart pulsing with the energy of this living, breathing world. Lena soon realized she was not alone. Shadows flickered between the trees, creatures unseen but always present. She felt their eyes upon her, watching, waiting. Not all things in the whispering forest are kind, One of the guardians warned, its gaze sharp. You must tread carefully, for the woods remember everything. They hold the echoes of all who have come before you. Lena nodded, though she didn't fully understand. As she stepped forward, she felt the whisper of voices in the wind, not calling her this time, but warning her. She was about to uncover something long forgotten. Chapter 4, The Forgotten Name. At the heart of the forest stood an ancient archway made of intertwining branches. A symbol was etched into the bark, one Lena somehow recognized though she had never seen it before. Her fingers traced the grooves, and the moment her skin met the ancient wood, the world around her shifted. Memories that were not her own flooded into her mind. A girl, much like herself, walking this path long ago. A promise whispered beneath the moonlight. A name that had been erased by time. Lena gasped, staggering back. Who was she? The guardian beside her bowed its head. She was the first traveler. And the last. A cold wind rushed through the trees, carrying with it a whisper so faint Lena barely caught it. But she understood. She had been called here for a reason. The forest was not merely welcoming her, it was entrusting her with a secret long buried beneath its roots. Chapter 5, The Forest's Gift. The air crackled with unseen energy as Lena stepped beyond the archway. The world changed yet again. She was no longer just Lena, the girl who had followed the whispers, she was something more. The spirits of the forest bowed their heads as she passed, the trees humming in approval. The lost echoes of those who had come before surrounded her, guiding her toward the heart of the land where a single tree, larger and older than any other, stood waiting. A gift lay at its roots, a pendant, pulsating with soft golden light. Lena knelt and picked it up. The moment her fingers closed around it, warmth spread through her chest, and a voice, neither hers nor the forest's, whispered in her mind. Remember. The knowledge flooded into her, the understanding of why she had been brought here, of what had been lost, and of what she must now protect. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the leaves, Lena turned back the way she had come. She was no longer just a visitor. She was part of the forest now. And its secrets would live within her forever. Epilogue, The Whisper That Never Ends. Lena returned to the world beyond the forest, but she was never truly the same. The whispers followed her, their melody a constant reminder that the magic of the deep woods still thrived in hidden corners of the world, waiting for those who dared to listen. And sometimes, on nights when the wind stirred just right, she could hear her name carried through the air, as if the forest was calling her home once more. Title, Between Worlds, The Journey of a Wandering Soul. Prologue, The Last Memory. The last thing Elias remembered was the rain. It had poured relentlessly that evening, drumming against the windshield of his car as he drove down the slick roads. The streetlights were hazy, distorted through the downpour. His fingers had clenched the wheel tighter when a sudden glare, bright, blinding, pierced through the darkness. Then, nothing. No sound. No pain. Just an overwhelming silence that stretched into eternity. Until he opened his eyes. Chapter 1, The Departure. Elias floated above his body. He saw himself sprawled across the cold pavement, rain soaking his clothes, a small crowd gathering around. A woman was kneeling beside him, shouting for someone to call an ambulance. He wanted to speak, to tell her that he was fine, but when he reached out, his hand passed through her shoulder like mist. Panic clawed at him. He turned, searching for an explanation. That was when he saw it, the silver thread. It extended from his chest, linking him to the broken figure below. It pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of a dying star. What is happening? The air shimmered, and suddenly, he was no longer alone. A figure emerged from the veil of mist. Cloaked in flowing silver robes, their face was neither young nor old, neither male nor female. Their eyes glowed with the wisdom of countless lifetimes. You stand between two realms, Elias, the figure said, their voice both distant and near. You are not yet gone, but you are no longer fully here. Elias's breath hitched. I'm dead. Not yet. The figure extended a hand. Come. There is much to see. Chapter 2, The Echoing World. The world around him shifted like a watercolor painting caught in the rain. The city blurred, its edges dissolving into hues of gold and violet. Elias felt weightless, drifting alongside the cloaked figure as they stepped into a world unseen by the living. The first thing he noticed was the whispers. They rose like a tide, murmurs of voices layered over one another, forming an endless symphony of memories and regrets. Shadows flickered around him, people, or rather, fragments of them. Echoes of their past selves, replaying their final moments over and over. A man stood by an old bookstore, hands reaching for a door that no longer existed. A child laughed as she chased a paper boat through a puddle that had long since dried. Lovers held hands, their fingers dissolving into stardust as they walked into nothingness. This is where lingering souls gather, the figure explained. Some wait for closure. Others do not even realize they have passed. Elias swallowed. And me? Why am I here? The figure's expression was unreadable. Because you have a choice. Chapter 3, The Doors of Destiny. They arrived at a vast expanse where doors floated in midair, each radiating a different energy. Some glowed warmly, inviting and peaceful. Others pulsed erratically, their frames twisted, oozing shadows. These doors lead to the next journey, the figure said. Some souls move forward. Others return. Elias turned to them. Return? You mean? I can go back. The figure nodded. But the longer you stay, the fainter your connection becomes. Their gaze flickered to the silver thread still tethered to Elias's chest. Soon, it will break. Elias hesitated. His body still lay in the mortal world, fighting to hold on. If he left now, would he ever wake up? Was there something waiting for him beyond these doors? A sudden tug pulled at his chest. The silver thread pulsed, calling him back. A voice, soft, familiar, echoed in the distance. Come back to me. Elias knew that voice. Chapter 4, The Ties That Bind. Following the voice, Elias drifted through the veil between worlds. He saw flashes of a hospital room, machines beeping, the rhythmic hiss of a ventilator. And beside the bed, a woman. Her hands clutched his, her eyes swollen from crying. Lena. Memories surged like a tidal wave. Their laughter beneath summer skies. The night they danced in the rain. The whispered promises, the dreams they built together. He had promised her a lifetime. Tears pricked his ethereal eyes. I can't leave her. The figure beside him placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Then go. The world twisted. The silver thread shone brighter, pulling him down, down, down. Chapter 5, Awakening. Elias's eyes snapped open. The blinding lights of the hospital ceiling greeted him. Pain shot through his body, but it was real, tangible. The rhythmic beep of a heart monitor filled the room, steady and strong. A gasp. Then, a sob. Lena. She threw her arms around him, whispering his name between tears. Elias squeezed her hand, his own trembling but alive. He had made it back. As he lay there, staring at the ceiling, the whispers of the in-between worlds still echoed faintly in his ears. He knew he had been given something precious, not just a second chance, but knowledge of a realm that most would never see. He had returned. But part of him would always remember the place where the souls whispered and the doors to the unknown awaited. Epilogue, the unfinished story. Weeks later, as Elias recovered, he often found himself staring at the rain against the window, remembering the night it all began. He knew he would never be the same. And then, one evening, as he drifted towards sleep, a familiar voice brushed against his ear. A whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. Until we meet again. Title, The Dream That Was Real. Prologue, the beginning of something strange. Ethan had always been a deep sleeper, but that night was different. There was something in the air, something electric, something that whispered along the edges of reality. It was the kind of night where the world felt thinner, where dreams seemed to linger just a little too long in the morning light. He closed his eyes, expecting the usual swirl of scattered memories and half-forgotten thoughts to lull him into unconsciousness. Instead, the moment his head hit the pillow, he felt a sudden pull, like being yanked from his body and hurled into something far greater than himself. And then, the dream began. Chapter 1, A Door to Nowhere. Ethan opened his eyes to find himself standing in front of a door. It was tall and arched, carved from wood that shimmered like liquid gold. There was no wall, no building, just the door, standing alone in the middle of a field of white flowers that stretched endlessly into the horizon. The wind rustled through them, carrying with it a scent Ethan couldn't quite place, something ancient and familiar all at once. He turned around. There was nothing else, no sky, no sun, just an infinite stretch of light and petals. The door, it seemed, was the only thing that existed. A strange sense of déjà vu washed over him. He had seen this door before, somewhere, sometime, but he couldn't remember where. His fingers tingled as he reached out and turned the handle. The moment he did, the world shifted. Chapter 2, The City That Never Was. Ethan stepped through the door and into a city unlike any he had ever seen. Towering structures twisted into impossible shapes, their windows glowing with a soft, pulsating light. Bridges floated between buildings, suspended in mid-air with no visible support. The sky was an ever-changing canvas of colors, shifting from deep purples to vibrant golds with each passing moment. The streets were filled with people, or at least, things that resembled people. Some had elongated limbs, others were wrapped in cloaks of shadow, their faces shifting like smoke. They moved with an eerie grace, completely at ease in this strange world. "Welcome, traveler," a voice called. Ethan turned to see a figure watching him from the steps of a spiraling tower. She was dressed in flowing silks that seemed to move on their own, her silver hair cascading down her back like water. Her eyes were the most striking feature, glowing orbs of golden light that seemed to see straight through him. "You've come far," she said. "But the journey is only beginning." Chapter 3, The Puzzle of Memory. Ethan followed her through the city, weaving between floating marketplaces and streets paved with liquid glass. Everywhere he looked, things shimmered just out of reach, like a mirage on the edge of his vision. "Where am I?" he finally asked. "The dreamscape," she replied. "A world built from forgotten memories and half-formed thoughts." "Then, this is just a dream." She smiled. "Is it?" He frowned. Something about this felt too real, the texture of the cobblestones beneath his feet, the distant hum of music drifting through the air. He reached out and touched the wall of a nearby building. It was solid, warm beneath his fingertips. "Dreams are more than just illusions," the woman continued. "They are doors to places long lost, echoes of things that once were, or things that might still be." Ethan swallowed. "Then why am I here?" She studied him for a long moment. "Because you were meant to be." Chapter 4, The Mirror That Remembers. She led him to a vast hall, its walls lined with mirrors of every shape and size. Some were cracked, others clouded, their reflections shifting as though glimpsing into different moments in time. "This," she said, gesturing to a tall, ornate mirror in the center, "is your door home." Ethan hesitated. His reflection was distorted, flickering between his present self and someone older, someone with lined skin and tired eyes. It sent a chill down his spine. "What happens if I don't step through?" he asked. She tilted her head. "Then you stay." He looked around at the city, at the impossible buildings and the endless sky. There was something deeply intoxicating about this place, something that called to him. But somewhere, in the waking world, another life was waiting. He reached out and touched the mirror. Chapter 5, Waking Up to the Impossible. Ethan's eyes snapped open. Sunlight streamed through his window, casting long shadows across the room. His sheets were tangled, his heart pounding in his chest. He sat up slowly, his head spinning, his body feeling strangely heavy. A dream. It had just been a dream. Hadn't it? His gaze flickered to his hands. There, curled in his palm, was a single white petal. The same kind that had filled the endless field in his dream. His breath caught. He looked around, half expecting to see the shimmering city through his window, but everything was as it had always been. And yet, he knew, deep in his bones, that something had changed. He had been somewhere else. Somewhere real. And maybe, just maybe, he hadn't left it behind. Epilogue, the door will open again. Days passed, but the feeling never faded. He could still hear the faint hum of the dreamscape, feel the ghost of silken streets beneath his feet. Then, one evening, as he was preparing for bed, a breeze stirred through his room. It carried the scent of something ancient, something he could almost, but not quite, remember. He turned toward the corner of the room. And there, standing alone against the wall, was a door. A door he had seen before. A door that was waiting to be opened again. Additional chapter, The Dreamer's Journey. But this time, Ethan was ready. He stepped forward, fingers trembling, and grasped the handle. The moment he did, the door creaked open, revealing not just the dreamscape, but something beyond even that. Another world. Another reality. And so, with his heart pounding, he stepped through once more, ready to uncover the mysteries that lay ahead. Title: The Misadventures of a Man-Turned Mosquito. Prologue: An unexpected transformation. Nathan never believed in magic. Science, logic, and the undeniable rules of the physical world, those were the pillars of his existence. That is, until the night he swatted at a peculiar-looking mosquito hovering near his ear and everything changed. The moment his palm made contact with the tiny insect, an overwhelming dizziness struck him. His body tingled, his vision blurred, and before he could comprehend what was happening, the world around him expanded, or rather, he shrank. When the nausea subsided, Nathan found himself floating in the air, his arms, or what used to be his arms, buzzing uncontrollably. And that was when he realized, he was a mosquito. Chapter 1, Learning to Fly, the Hard Way. Panic set in immediately. Nathan flailed, or at least attempted to. His 6 new limbs twitched in ways he had no control over, and his wings vibrated so fast he felt like a malfunctioning drone. His first flight attempt sent him spiraling straight into a bookshelf, where he bounced off and landed on the floor. Ow. Wait, do mosquitoes even feel pain? His voice was gone. All that came out was a faint, high-pitched buzzing. Desperate to understand his situation, he tried again, managing to hover just above the floor this time. The world around him was now massive. His coffee table looked like a skyscraper, his couch stretched endlessly, and the overhead lamp glowed like an artificial sun. That's when he noticed the looming figure of his cat, Mr. Pickles, eyeing him from the armrest. Oh no. No, no, no. Mr. Pickles pounced. Nathan barely dodged, his instincts taking over. His tiny mosquito body zigzagged through the air, a miraculous escape that had him weaving around furniture at lightning speed. He had no time to revel in his agility, he needed to find out what happened and how to turn back. But first, he needed to survive. Chapter 2, The Hunger of the Beast. It didn't take long for a new horror to hit Nathan, he was starving. An unbearable, gnawing sensation overtook his entire being. But unlike human hunger, this was different. It wasn't a craving for food. It was something far worse. He needed blood. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Not happening. He shuddered at the thought. But his new mosquito instincts didn't care about his human morality. The moment he caught a whiff of something warm and inviting, his tiny wings carried him forward without hesitation. His human consciousness screamed in protest, but his mosquito nature had taken over. His target. His best friend and roommate, Jake, who was napping on the couch. Nathan hovered over Jake's exposed arm, trying to fight the temptation. Don't do it. Don't do it. Find another way. His body didn't listen. His tiny needle-like mouth plunged downward. The moment his proboscis pierced the skin, an explosion of taste, far richer and more intoxicating than any gourmet meal he'd ever had, flooded through him. It was bliss, a deep satisfaction he had never known. It was. Whack. A hand slapped down, narrowly missing him. Jake stirred, scratching his arm, then rolled over. Nathan shot into the air, his tiny heart racing. Okay, that was too close. But even worse than nearly dying, he wanted more. Chapter 3, A Mosquito with a Mission. Realizing he had to break this cursed transformation, Nathan decided to seek answers. But where? He had no idea how magic worked, let alone how to reverse whatever bizarre spell had turned him into a bug. Then he remembered Madame Zara, the eccentric fortune teller who ran a mysterious little shop down the street. If anyone knew something about magic, it would be her. But first, he had to get there. And that meant braving the outside world. Chapter 4, The Great Outdoors, aka Death Trap. The moment Nathan slipped through the window screen and entered the open world, he regretted it. Wind buffeted him like a hurricane. The sheer force of it sent him tumbling through the sky, his wings struggling to regain control. Everything was too big, the trees were towering monsters, the passing cars were rolling earthquakes, and the streetlights were blinding suns. Then came the worst part. Birds. A sharp whoosh cut through the air as a sparrow dived toward him with terrifying speed. Nathan swerved, barely avoiding the beak that snapped shut inches from him. "I am not mosquito food today," he yelled, though all that came out was more buzzing. He zigzagged wildly, dodging a second bird attack, then shot toward the awning of a nearby coffee shop, where he crash-landed onto the edge of a wooden table. Panting, he looked up and there she was. Madame Zara, sipping tea, her eyes scanning the sky as if she'd been waiting for him. Chapter 5, Breaking the Curse. Nathan didn't waste time. He flew toward her face, desperately trying to get her attention. "Madame Zara." "It's me, Nathan." She blinked, then tilted her head. "Oh, dear. A talking mosquito. That's new. Please, you have to help me. I don't know how this happened, but I need to change back." She hummed thoughtfully. "Let me guess, you killed a very peculiar mosquito before this happened." Nathan's wings drooped. "Ah, yes." Madame Zara sighed. "Oh, you poor fool. That was no ordinary mosquito. That was a hex carrier. A magical being that transfers its essence to its killer. Which means, you stole its form." Nathan groaned. "Great. So how do I undo it?" She tapped her chin. "Well, normally, the curse wears off in a few days. But if you want a faster solution..." She reached into her bag and pulled out a tiny vial filled with glowing liquid. "Drink this." Nathan hesitated. "How, exactly? I don't have hands." She sighed, then unceremoniously flicked the vial's contents at him. The world spun again. His tiny body expanded, his limbs stretched, and before he knew it, he was human again. Epilogue, the aftermath. Nathan collapsed onto the table, panting. He looked at his hands, wiggled his fingers, then let out a victorious laugh. "I'm back. Oh, sweet, human existence." Madame Zara smirked. "Next time, maybe don't go around swatting at magical creatures." Nathan groaned. Noted. As he stumbled out of the shop, grateful beyond words, a single mosquito buzzed past his ear. He froze. Then, ever so carefully, he let it live.